Hello, welcome to Vast Yoga. My name's Katie, and today we're just going to be doing a short sequence that is mostly for helping to realign your hips and reset your posture. So this is really good for people with a lot of sciatic pain or just anyone who has one hip that is a lot tighter than the other one. The way you can find out whether or not you have one hip that's a lot tighter, usually you know, but if you have a lot more pain on that side in the knee or in your foot, or if you have pain in your low back on one side, it's usually that side that is tighter. So for this sequence today, you're going to need a couple of props. One thing is this ball. So these are 4-inch plastic balls that are like kids' balls. And I've given them to some of you. If you need help finding them, let me know. I bought this one from Menards, and it's fun because it also lights up like a disco ball. But you don't need to have one with a light in it. It can just be a regular ball. The important thing is that it's a little bit squishy, but not super squishy, right? Like hard enough to stay without completely collapsing when you put weight on it. And 4 inches. And then the other thing you need today is just a block, and you can use anything like a block. I just got a picture from a friend who used a Kleenex box, but it's nice if you have an actual block to use for this. So then what you're gonna do is start by just picking out which hip it is you want to release. And you can then you're gonna be placing the ball between the front hip bone and the pubic bone. So if you feel on your hips for your hip bone that sticks out in the front, and then notice where your pubic bone is, the ball is going to be placed right into that fleshy area. And you're going to try to get it so that it goes on the inside of the hip bone. So you're not out on the hip bone, but you're more on the inside. And then you're going to just lay down onto the ball with the ball in that space. And then it's not about really rolling around on this ball, but instead just finding some big sensation and staying. So if you feel a lot of like nervy energy, like pins and needles in your leg, then you might be on a nerve and you should try to shift and find a different place to press. And if you feel like throbbing in your leg, you might be on an artery, so you need to move that as well. There's a lot of stuff in this area, and it's kind of tricky sometimes to find that deep muscle. But what you're trying to do is find some muscle that's really tight when you press it. It should be big sensation, and I'd like it to feel like it's on the inside of your hip. So if you feel the hip bone, it goes on the inside of it some, and this is affecting both the psoas and the iliacus. And the iliacus is the muscle that wraps around the front of your hip. So it's very difficult, it's impossible to stretch this muscle, but if it's really tight, it can lead to a lot of inconsistencies between the two hips. So you're just letting it rest there and breathing, and you can have your arms like this, or you can lay down, but you just find whatever pressure is good for you, and try to let your belly relax a little bit so it goes into that deep sensation. It should take between 30 seconds and maybe up to like 2 or 3 minutes for the sensation to get softer. And the more often you practice this, the less time it's going to take for it to start to release. You may notice that it gets more intense for a little while before it starts to release. So don't be alarmed if it starts to become more painful than when you started. And then after you've let it release some, you're gonna roll off of the ball. Just roll off of the ball. And then you're gonna turn around and lay down. But before you lay down, you're gonna notice, you're gonna place the ball on the back side of the same hip that you were working on the front of. And it's gonna be below your sacrum in the upper part of your glute. And again, you can find the spot that feels best for you, but you're just gonna try and place it and then sit on it. you can use your hands behind you and extend the leg that you're working on forward. And then again, it's not really about rolling, but try to roll a little bit to find a spot that's very intense with the sensation, and then try to just relax your leg and breathe. So we're trying to release the muscles that hold both sides of this hip. So first we did the front, the iliacus and the psoas. And now we're working on this back glute. And again, you're just breathing and letting the ball do the work for you. And just like in the front, sometimes it gets more intense before it starts to get better. But just see how it feels for you. Make sure to breathe. That's what makes it yoga. Try to relax your shoulders. Good. And then when you've let that release, you can just move the ball to the side and place it away. And then you're going to lay down and just have your knees bent and your feet on the floor. Let your back settle. And then on the side that you've been working on, you're going to reach up and grab underneath that knee and try to interlock your fingers underneath the knee. And then pick up your other foot too, but it's just relaxed. So both knees are above the hips, both feet are relaxed, and you're just holding underneath the knee that you've released that hip. And then this is an exercise that can feel kind of tricky at first, but the more you do it, the more sense it starts to make. So what I want you to think about is driving your heel down toward the floor and squeezing your hand with the back of your calf so that the back of your leg starts to turn on and your heel's driving down. Think about pressing your thigh a little bit away from you. And at the same time that that action's happening, you're gonna use your arms a little bit to just resist the movement. And when that happens, it should feel like your hip is being sort of driven down onto the floor, and then you relax the effort. And then you do it again. You squeeze the back of your hand with your leg and drive your heel away and down, and resist with your hands to drive your hip toward the floor. And then relax the effort. And you can go at your own pace, but I want you to squeeze and drive your hip down for a second or two, and then relax, and try to do 10 or so in a row. So this isometric exercise is helping to sort of reset the hip. And it's sort of like you can imagine that you're sort of trying to jiggle something into place and doing it a bunch of times to see if it can release a different way. But just keep your awareness on sort of driving your hip onto the floor. Very good. And then you can release your legs and your hands and just take a breath. Let your belly feel soft, your groins relax. And then we're gonna do another exercise that can be done at the same time or just on its own anytime. And for this one, you need the block or whatever you're gonna use that's about this length. And for this, I'd like you to lay down with your head on the floor and your knees bent and your feet on the wall at 90 degrees. So your feet, your knees, and your hips make a 90-degree angle. So when I first laid down here, you can see, and this is pretty good. Sometimes if you're too close to the wall, it feels like your whole low back is pressing down on the floor. And your hips are lifted up like this. And I'd rather you do a few pelvic tilts back and forth and just feel your pelvis and try to set it so it's more neutral instead of tilted a lot this way. And if you tilt this way and feel like you're really close and your groins are really tight, see if you can move a little further back from the wall and still have that neutral pelvis with your knees stacked right over your hips. And then you're gonna place the block between your knees the widest distance, so not the narrow way or the medium, but all the way wide. And you're just gonna hold it there and have your feet be right in line with your knees. So not too far out or in, right? Just in line. And then just holding the block, place your hands on your belly and just take a few breaths, letting your belly move as you breathe. Feel your breath go in and your belly get big. And let your breath go out and your belly get soft. Try to let your groins relax, your hips feel heavy. And then we're gonna combine another dynamic movement, an isometric movement with a breath. And to do that, first get used to the breath. So the breath is a big breath into your belly, and then you're gonna blow it out fast and like controlled in a way so that you can make it a little bit hard to push out and your belly engages. And so one way to think about this is to put the sides of your tongue next to your teeth and the middle of your tongue away from the back of your teeth in the front. So it goes like this. So you breathe into your belly, fill yourself up, and then make your mouth kind of controlled and breathe it out fast. Go. As you do that, you should feel the tissue underneath your fingers getting firm and your back just pressing against the floor a little bit. And then you're gonna combine that breath with engaging your leg muscles. And to do that, you're gonna just lightly squeeze the block with your knees. And at the same time, without moving your feet from where they are on the wall, you're gonna press your heels down toward the wall. Try not to press your head on the floor or change the pressure in your shoulders. Just start to engage the hamstrings and the back of your legs. And then keeping the pressure in between the thighs and the heels pressing down, you're gonna think about driving your hips down onto the floor as you do that big exhalation. So you take a big breath in with everything relaxed, and then you do all the effort at the same time, blowing out and engaging your legs. So you go. And it should feel like you're driving your hips down onto the floor as you squeeze that block. Try not to have the tendency of doing it like this, where your hips pop up off the floor. So I want you to engage the back of your legs without letting the pelvic tilt happen. So you just keep your spine neutral, fill up your belly, and as you exhale, you're gonna squeeze the block, press your heels to the floor, and drive your hips down toward the floor with your exhalation. So do a few on your own. Good, and then you can also do the same exercise using more effort on one side than the other. So especially if you have one hip that is a lot different than the other or a lot weaker, you can do the same movement with both legs engaging, but think about using more effort on the side that's weak and more breath in that side of your belly. So you just do the same idea, but as you exhale, you think about driving the weaker hip down more and stronger, and then relax. And if you do some one-sided ones, make sure you end your practice of this with a couple in the middle again. Good. And then you can just relax, move the block to the side, maybe spend a little bit of time with your legs up the wall, or you can always just bend your knees, press yourself back, and lay with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. And then a good end to this practice can either just be resting or putting the block back between your knees with your feet on the floor, and then doing a similar breath where you just fill up your belly and blow it out fast so the low abdomen engages. And then lightly squeeze the block with your knees, press your feet down, keep your core braced and lift your hips a little bit to come up into a small glute bridge. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Your rib cage is resting on the floor, but you're just squeezing your glutes. And you can do any variation of this. You can do several up and down, keeping your core tight. Not lifting faster than you can keep the pressure against the block, keeping your pelvis stable. Or you can take the big breath, feel your core, squeeze the block, lift a little bit higher, and then try to do one side at a time, pressing your feet down, squeezing the glute more without changing the level of your hips. Tiny movements, but lots of engagement. Neck soft, shoulder soft. Can march between the two legs. And then press both feet down a lot and do little pulses. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And you can do as many as you want until you're tired. Let your breath move and your neck feel soft. And then gently put it all the way down. Remove the block again. Take a deep breath. And then that's a complete practice for that reset. One other thing you can do with the ball that I just want to show quickly is you can have your head supported on your bolster. You can take the ball, and this is more of so this practice with the ball is for your shoulders and your upper back. So to do that, have your head supported on a bolster, and you can just place the ball between your shoulder blade and your spine, somewhere in your upper back. I like to place it lower than my upper trapezius, so kind of down next to my spine. It's better if it's not right in the middle of your spine for this. Just find an area that's really tight. And again, you're just gonna lay down on the ball. And once you lay your head down, you can adjust. Could be a little bit lower, whatever feels nice. And then you just relax your shoulders. Think about your collarbone being broad. And then you can do movements with your arms. You can just reach your arm up toward the ceiling. If you're reaching up, try to keep your shoulder down, relaxed. You can find different angles. When you move your hand across your body, feel your shoulder blade move away from your spine. You can also have your elbow be right above your shoulder with your arm bent, and use your other hand to guide that arm across. And as that happens, try to feel your shoulder blade move away from the spine, and let the ball go into that space right next to your shoulder blade. And you can try different things on your own. It could be that you don't need that other arm. It could be that you really like doing something at a different angle. Just be gentle with your movement. You can also rest your arm on the bolster. Try to relax your shoulders. Good. And then you can try the other side. You can also try having the ball right in the middle of your spine and having your arms on the bolster. And this one, the ball is a little bit lower toward the bottom of your shoulder blades. And you just use your shoulder blades to squeeze the block, you use your shoulder blades to squeeze the ball and feel your back muscles engage a little bit. Let your chest feel broad. Relax your neck. Good. And then you can always just release and let yourself rest. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day.